Welcome to Drive for Service, a podcast to inspire higher quality of service. David?
Yeah?
Why are you wearing a tie?
Because we got front of house royalty today.
Well, I guess you're right. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome the next guest of our show, a legendary maitre-d in the UK.
Yeah, from Gavroche for nearly 40 years, Silvano Giraldin. Welcome.
Welcome.
More than 40, actually.
More than 40.
I started in Gavroche in 1971.
Wow.
Where Gavroche was still in Chelsea at that time. And then obviously we moved into Mayfair in the 80s and are still involved with Gavroche now. Yeah. So it's over 52 years. So I'm involved in Gavroche. All my working life in England has been involved around Gavroche. So that's to give you an example, yes.
Fantastic.
Very much.
So you started at La Gavroche, basically?
Well, no, the Gavroche was starting in 1967, and I joined very quickly after that. I mean, I arrived in January 1971, so that's a long time.
And you had a background in Italy before?
Well, yes, Italy and France. I started very young. I started catering school. I was 14, just finishing the elementary. There was a bit of scuola media, and then I started the catering school, and done 3 years of catering school. And during the stages between the years, the first year they sent me obviously in Venice. I was at the Hotel de Bain in Venice in the Lido, and then that was a marvelous time. I was about 15, 16, and the Bain was only open very shortly that year. It was raining and so on. But then shortly after that, the film festival started.
Oh, yeah. And
the famous festival, which was at the Excelsior, just beside, always in the Lido, but beside the Hotel de Bain. And the teacher of the catering school said, Silvano, look, can you come and help us? Because I need people during the festival. And I was there. I was only 16 at that time, looked very pale. And they put me selling cigarettes.
No.
So I had my thing, and I remember the most important thing. I sold a packet of Marlboro to Frank Sinatra at that time. 16, just imagine. I mean, and he gave me at that time 10,000 lire, which were cut in square. The 10,000 lire at that time, I mean, it's like an A4 piece of paper. It was folded, and
how much is it translated in euros?
I don't know. Maybe like not in euro at the moment. You cannot. It's like a ticket of 500 euro. 500 euros. Yes, 500 euros
Wow.
for a packet of cigarettes. So I said, I don't have any changes. Give me the change. Behind him, Dean Martin said the same thing. When I told my dad how much I made on tip, he said, "Are you sure? You should give it back. It's not possible." That's what, to give you an example, that's how my career was. So from there, the following year, they sent me at the Negresco in Nice.
Okay.
And the Negresco in Nice is still one of the best palaces into the river. So I always navigated within the top thing. And when I was in the Negresco in Nice, that was in 1966, the Beatles had a floor taken because they were doing a gig in Nice at that time, and the Beatles in the 60s, just imagine, I mean, the top. And they gave me a lodging in a room inside, not overlooking the sea, obviously, but it was a chauffeur room. As I was very, very young, they put me on the chauffeur room, and I was opening the door, and I could see the Beatles passing by, and so on. So that was marvelous time. So that's I was put into that position that I could never come back to do anything else. But I was in love with my job. I was in love with the service. I was in love with people. And that was my career taken off from there. And then from there, I moved into Aix-les-Bains, which one Aix-les-Bains was a kind of, you are from Italy, Abano Terme.
Si.
Aix-les-Bains was more or less the same thing, where the people were coming to do the mud bath at that time for rheumatism and things like that. And I was making season from moving from Italy to France. In Italy, I was working in my fatherland. He was a coltivatore director, which is, a laborer. And I was working during not the season, but during the inter-season, I was working in the farm. And then I was working in France during those seasons. And then I moved to Paris. Paris, I had a very wild experience as well, marvelous time. And I was working, never managed to keep a place more than 1 month, actually, in Paris. I was thrown out of one place to another.
This is why it was wild.
Yeah, very much wild. And then I ended up to one of the most beautiful nightclubs. I was 22 at that time, and I had 1 year of my life really working at the Pasha Club, which was just on the outskirts of the very near Versailles, not far from Versailles, in Louveciennes, beautiful, small little village. And then I wanted to speak English, so I wrote 3 or 4 letters into England, mainly to the top hotel. No one answered me back. At that time, the Savoy was the top of the hotel, the Savoy, the Claridge's, and the other one I cannot remember. I wrote, no one answered me back until I met a very nice French boy, and he said, the French guy which was working with me, and he said, look, there is 2 young French chefs doing fantastic in London, and they are looking for stuff because they are expanding very fast. And he said, what was their name? And he said, well, Albert and Michel Roo. So I wrote in French at that time because my English was very bad. And I wrote in French, and I wrote in October, and they answered me back straight away. He said, with your CV, we can get your permit, because at that time, England was not in the EC. England. So I got my green card within 2 months. And I started off, that was 70, and 71, I arrived over here in England working for the Roo family.
So at the time, the Roo family already owned...
Well, the Roo family already had the Le Gavroche, which was the first one, obviously. They started with Gavroche. But in 69, they opened one in the city called Le Poulbeau, which is on the corner of Bread Street and the Cheapside. That's where Gordon Ramsay got a restaurant called Bread, from Bread Street. That was on that corner. There was inside the Bank of England. I mean, that building had been destroyed and rebuilt. And it was called Le Poulbeau, which was very, very successful. And then they had another one, which was called Brasserie Benoit, which became later on, they changed the name into Les Gamins. And there the chef was, I started off in Gavroche, and the chef was a guy, I cannot remember his name, but the Gavroche at the same time I started, Pierre Kaufmann started off a few months before me. Kaufmann started in October 1970, and then he became 2 or 3 months after I arrived, he became head chef at the Gamins. So that's it. That's they exploiting all the time. A year after they opened up the Waterside Inn, so that was 72. I was there already. So they were expanding quite a lot.
And what was your role there when you started?
Just a commis. I could not speak a word of English.
And what did a commis do in those days?
The commis were carrying plate, clearing up the table, not in contact with the customer whatsoever. I mean, we were just smiling and say hello, and we could not.
And how would you describe the environment in that time?
Very nice. I mean, the Roo Brothers always had the idea that a restaurant cannot exist without service. So they were shouldering us to the maximum to do a better service. And at that time, I remember them being short of staff, and I said, chef, can you help? And one of them would change categorically from the chef jacket and come in the room and help us. Categorically, the importance of service always been fantastic. There is our thought and their thought was that there is not a good restaurant without good service.
Yes.
The food can be good, can be fine, good food anywhere, but the personal touch which you give to regular customers is the most paramount, and that was their vision of the Roo Brothers at that time, and that's how I evolved. So I started with a commis, and then always been doing a lot of wine testing and so on. So I was put wine waiter, and then I became sommelier, and then I became little by little. I stayed for 2 years sommelier in charge. Michel Roux Senior was the one buying the wine, and I was his man selling the wine in Gavroche. And then the maitre-d at that time was one of the most marvelous guy I ever met. Unfortunately, he passed away. He was supposed to open a place with Pierre Kaufmann, so they both left for France. And that was the 1975. And as I was the senior guy, I don't know if I was good or not, I was a senior guy at that time, they put me managing Gavroche. So that's it.
And this person that you mentioned before, this maitre-d, is the person who inspired you?
No, yes, he inspired me a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, he inspired me a lot. But who inspired me the most was my teacher at school. They were the two guys who most inspired me the most was Mr. Trevini was called. He was a guy which was speaking about 5 languages, 6 languages even. You know, he was married to a Brazilian guy. Being Italian Spanish is very easy, you know, for him. And on top of that, he married a very beautiful, I remember her on her 60 already, and he was already 60, 65 when he's teaching at school. He had already finished his career. Wow. And he was teaching school front of the house, the hotel. And this guy, Trevini, was a class. He was unbelievable. Really, you know, smart, typical, very Italian. Always his bow tie. Even when he was teaching here, he's always his bow tie, dressed immaculately well. And he always said to me, look, forget about the money. When you are young, learn from the best. Try to move around. I know I should not say that to the young people because we want to keep them. But he said, try to move around. When you learn enough from one place, don't stay there. Don't sleep there. Go around. You learn your job. He said, from the age of 18 till the age of 23, 24, 25, he said, move around because it's like changing from one school to another, you always learn. He said, like going to university for your profession. He said, after that, when you got a good job, the money will come by itself. And that was the idea. And so that's this guy. Actually, he was marvelous, radiant. He worked also for from Juan Perón of Argentina. He was a butler of Juan Perón of Argentina. So during the 50s. So that's a marvelous guy. And then the other one, the barman, was Igino Generali. He was a barman at that time. The Italian merchant navy was very important. They had a cruise ship, which was very still now. They got some cruise ship, but not to the level which they were there. And there was the Michelangelo, one of the best cruise ship at that time, and he was barman at this cruise ship. And he was teaching at the school as well. He was only 60, you know, half retired. And he was marvelous as well. You know, those two people inspired me to get in my profession.
What did you learn from Michelangelo Barman? From the barman.
Mixology, and he always said that the barman is the confessor of the confessor of the customers. You know, that when they go at the bar, they love a drink, and they always speak to him. And he said, "I'm the confessor." He said, I can always tell the sin. I never tell the sinner, but I always tell the sin of my people. He said, you know, I will never say who told me that, but I always tell what they told me. He said, because he was a confessor. I mean, he was the one which listened to all their problems and so on. And he said, you know, that's when they had a drink and so on, you are behind the bar and you listen to them. It was marvelous. Two marvelous people who shaped my career, if you like.
Amazing.
Amazing, yeah. So tell us, Silvano, about, from your point of view, the importance, tell our listeners the importance of service.
You know, as I said, you know, the importance of service is when you give good service, people are coming back. Yeah. You can go to the best place on earth on food. If you're not welcomed properly, you probably go back in 5 years' time because you probably remember the food. Yeah. But if you are treated very well, you go back straight away. You go back again and again and again. And that's what is the service. The service is retaining people faithful to your place. Service, you know, I always say that service is not easy like a chef to write. A chef can write a book. Mm-hmm. Chef, you can write a recipe. They can do a dish. You can see it, they can take a picture. You cannot take a picture of good service. Only the people who know what service is appreciate it.
So it's more like a feeling, yeah?
It is a feeling. is giving pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking pleasure by giving pleasure. And if you don't have that quality, you cannot do good service. So you got to have that. You got to take pleasure by giving pleasure to them.
Yeah, I mean, we'd certainly agree with that. But it seems that people don't give enough thought into that.
Yes.
Enough.
It
seems very strange in a way.
It is very strange, but the majority of service you don't notice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't notice the guy. I saw on your previous thing when you had to change their spray and so on.
Mm.
They don't notice that. There were movements which we were doing it, which the customer don't even notice. They were noticing when they were not done.
Mm-hmm.
So they always, and unfortunately, I got to have a pick to little bit to what you would call the people or the journalists who write about food and so on, which they never praise service.
Mm-hmm.
And you know why? Because they've been serviced pretty well. They always said when the service is bad. They always write about when the service is bad because they're missing it. But a good service, you don't notice. A customer go in, you give him a good smile, you take his order from there. He should not call you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what he's going to have to eat, you know what you're going to have to drink, and if you're doing your job properly, you don't, unless he want to talk to you, you don't talk to him. Mm-hmm. Full stop. You give him all the service from top to bottom. And that's what, for me, what is a good service. Service which is not noticed.
Yeah.
That's and when you got people, I remember the old time that people were clipping their finger like that. I said, look, it's not the customers which is rude. It's you, which you should look at him.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at the ceiling. Don't look at the floor. Look at his eyes. You should know straight away. The most important thing for me in the restaurant is the 2 feet from the table to the eyes of the customers. Those 2 feet where the waiter should concentrate. You know it pretty well. You don't have to ask for more wine if the wine is empty and so on. The food is finished, you're clear. So all those sort of things, which the waiter should know, should not interrupt. Obviously, if the customers want to talk, yes, we are there to it. We are there to listen to them. We are there. I was always taught never to start a conversation. If the customer wants to talk to me, more than happy to talk to him, but never to start a conversation. That was our meant. Now it's different. Now the waiters are taking over.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm sometimes upset at the way they go about in the new service. You give an order, they'll explain you the service, and then you are in conversation with either your business partner or whenever, or your very good friend, and they put you down the plate and they stop you again to tell you what is on the plate. But if I give me the order, you tell me what it was, why do you disturb me and tell me again what it is? Is something went wrong? Did the chef miss something which you didn't tell me before? So that's why I hate that point. That's okay. If they look at you, yes, tell them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are in the middle of a conversation, don't disturb them. You give them what they have ordered, full stop. Well, go and serve another customer. So you're more interested to go and serve more people. You're more efficient to do other things than repeating what they have to eat. That's my belief. And that's what is, for me, service.
Yeah, it seems like it's all about, reading the table and reading the customers.
Very much so.
And you mentioned something very interesting, which I think service is now taking over. What do you mean by service is now taking over? The front of house and the waiters.
Well, they're not taking over. They are overpowering. They're overdoing it.
In that sense.
And I'm not saying they're taking over. No, we are not taking over anything. But they're overreacting. They're overdoing it.
Okay.
Because they are not being done properly. They are not being induced properly. They are breaking the conversation. They are disturbing the conversation more than anything else. That's why they're taking over the running of the table instead of letting the people think. That's what I meant.
I see.
So that's my thought. But I'm probably old class, and so now it's different.
I worked with somebody who worked with you in the past, and they said that you used to say that if a customer asks for something, then it's a complaint because you should have thought about it before.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You come in, you give your order, you give your drink, and if he come back to you because he's missing bread or anything, or he's missing that, is your fault.
Yeah.
It should not happen. We should not happen. We should, as I said, concentrate from the plate, on the table, into the eyes of the customers. If he look at you, that's mean he needs something. They don't look at you because you're pretty or anything or what. They look at you because they need something. And so as soon as he look at you, you should say straight away, yes, sir, full stop. And you know already what they want. If they've been waiting a long time for their food. If they've been, if you're missing bread. If you're missing wine, if you're missing water. You know that, and as soon as they call you, yes, this for me is a complaint already. They should not. That's it's not a complaint, but I mean that's what I teach the people working under me. Yes.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that they're doing it?
Well, you got to be in control of your staff. You got to be in control of the room. And you got to have eyes even behind your back. When you got to concentrate into the service, and you by experience. For me, when I walk into the room, I know straight away what's going on. If I'm working there, I know straight away what's going on, and that's how you got to direct your staff against it. And I always said that we are like a director of an orchestra. Service, a good maitre-d is like a director of an orchestra. When you got to keep up the wine service, we got to keep up the food service, we got to pick up the harmony. It's a kind of ballet dance. The good service is that. It's the feeling of you are in control. And if you are there, if you are, how a maestro look at their people playing music, he knows what they're doing wrong straight away. And that's how you keep in control of your room. If you keep in control, if you know your waiter, you know your reaction to the waiter, you know how good they are and how bad they are, and you are going to support the bad one.
Do you think it's something that you could teach potentially to someone? Like, you should have eyes in the front, in the back.
Yes, of course. But I had a lot of people who come out from Gavroche, which become very successful maitre-d on their own, and it's fantastic. And they've been fantastic. You can teach them that. You can, it's something which you got to take them slowly by slowly. And if they playing your tune, you'll teach them the tune. You teach them those things. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that leads us on to the next point of how do you build and motivate your teams over the years? And presumably you had lots of different teams and people move on.
Very much so. The team keep changing every day, every month, every year. You got to keep, stimulating the staff is something which you got to teach them. And the day you don't teach them anymore, you got to be very frank to say, look, I've teach everything which I know. Please go and move elsewhere.
Is that because you think they're becoming complacent and losing interest, or
no, not complacent or losing anything? They are bright kids, and they need to move on with their career. I've no more thing to offer them. It's very nice. When you got a beautiful waiters, very good waiters, which they're doing your job. If they're staying too much into that job, they become non-challenged. They become dormant.
Yeah.
So about time to say to them, look, thank you very much. You've done a fantastic job for me. Please go and learn somewhere else. Or if you got motivation, if you can promote them.
Yeah.
Then if they are commis, you promote them to chef de rang. If they're chef de rang, you promote them to maitre-d and so on. But you give them another job. Or you move them. There's so much to learn on the sommelier. A lot of young boys just want to be a waiter. I said, look, you are not only serving food, you got to think, why don't you learn about wine, about thinking wine? You know it pretty well. You never finish learning. Never. I'm still learning at my age. And that's it. So you try to move to area where they're still motivated. If the day they are they are no more motivated, you cannot do any more service. So that's why you got to keep them motivating. And motivating is learning. Learning the menu, learning how to act, learning how to pose in the restaurant, how to stand in the restaurant where they have nothing to do. They always said not to talk. I don't mind if they talk, but they should talk by looking the customer, not looking in the eyes like that. If you are side by side and you go express, why not? You're looking at your room and you got a moment of ease and you can have a little conversation with you. Why not? I don't have anything. Where I hate though, them having a conversation, looking at their own eyes and not looking in the room. That's I will not tolerate that. That's what it is, and that's what. And I've always been very strictly on service. Very very harsh, but that was my rules, and they had to abide by those rules. And service is fun if you do it well.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice. So, your thoughts on regulars and customer relations? I mean, over at the Gavroche for so long, you must have had so many regulars.
There are still people which were regular when I arrived. Some family, which their sons, I know their fathers, their sons become regular, and their grandson are still regular of the family. So they think, and you got to mention their name, and they will have a table. And for me, I know it is not easy to do, but a good maitre-d' never say no to irregular customers. There is one way or another that you can fix them in. I remember the whole time I said, well, look, I'm full. Can you come half an hour later, or half an hour early, or an hour early, or an hour late? And I always accommodate them. And then I know I had a few other regulars sitting down. I was going to say to them, would you mind moving to the bar? I'll offer you a drink. While you finish your meal, instead of sitting there at the table. And I was turning over the tables, lunch and dinner. You would never refuse a regular customers, within reason, obviously. There are times which you cannot. If you got 10 irregular customers on the same day, there's a moment which you cannot say no. But the majority of the time, regular customers is your regular customers. My most regular customer was a guy with a brewing family, English, typical brewing family, which came for 18 years, every day. And then he became senile. He lost his mind, or Alzheimer, or what. And he was, dear darling, his family took him away because of that. And he always asked to his family to take him there. And sometime he was living in the country, he was on his 80, a driver would arrive in front with him at the back and say he want to have dinner there. And on the early time, before he got Alzheimer, he would have always his same table, always arriving at 12:30. By 1:30, he was out, so I could renew a table. And then he forgot he had eaten, so he was coming back again at 2:00 for another meal. So the choice, either tell him, sorry, you already had your thing, and he was disappointed. Otherwise, sitting down and give him another meal. He was not eating, but so that's it. And I remember a couple of times I sat him down and sent the bill to his nephew was paying the bill. And his nephew called me and said, Silvano, but how can my uncle come twice? And I said, well, look, your uncle, he said, what do you want me to do? Throw him out or make him happy?
Yeah.
He said, I suppose you okay. So he was paying the bill. So it's no problem. That's 18 years in a row. Unbelievable.
So you said before that you maintain regular just mainly because of service and the way you treat guests.
No, man, you got to have the two. If you don't have good food, you won't have any good service. You got to have the two. We got to say that yes, service count, but it's like a driver of a car. If the car is not good, he can be a good driver. But if the car is not good, he doesn't go anywhere. So that's you got to have the combination of the two. And without the good food, without the good, we are nobody. So you got to have that as well. Don't only have the service. But you can have a good service and lousy food, they will not come either. Yes, so you got the combination of the two. We got to be realistic enough on our side to have the two.
did you do something like is particularly special for your guest?
Yes and not. Yes and not. Yes, probably remember their birthday, remember the thing like that. You could have that. It was more difficult at our time. We had a little book keeping all those sort of things. Now you got a computer. A computer will remind you everything. You got it easy now. In the old time, it was either half in our brain, half on a piece of paper, and that's it was. It was a different story. Yes, we were remembering that. You were remembering the name of their sons or their daughters or their thing. You were remembering a lot of them, and you would inquire about that, and that's making them pleased. They will tell you she's at that school and so on, and you were coming. They come back. How is your daughter at school? They will love that. That's it. But the most important thing was when they were coming, and you would say, "Hello, Mr. Smith," to give you a name. "How are you?" And in front of their guests, and you see them growing half a meter straight away. Going up. Oh, they recognize, and the guest impressing their guests, and that was the little touch like that which make them valuable and coming back to it. So that was the best thing. I remember I was seeing the people arriving, not remember their name. So I was disappearing for a moment, and I was sending a young person in front and said, "Sorry, sir, can I have your name?" And then the reception of the Gavroche, so the first floor, and the restaurant is downstairs. So I was buzzing on the telephone, said, "What is his name?" And Mr. Smith. I was coming back to say, "Hello, Mr. Smith."
I love your honesty.
It was trick of the job, and there's you want to act. You cannot. I had a very good memory for face and name, but you cannot all of them. And the worst is when they were guests of somebody. That was even worse. The worst was when they were guests. So you were, "Hello, Mr. Smith. I don't see your name on the book. What's up with you?" I said, "I'm a guest." So that's right.
Yeah.
But that was the worst is when they were guests, so you could not remember the name. You had to play and try to do a bit of trickiness and sending somebody forward scouting and so on. What can you do? That's what trick of the job.
Top tip.
It's true.
Yeah, may I just go back to, you mentioned earlier about the Roo Brothers, they really valued service.
Oh, yes.
I'm interested to know a bit more about how did they help in that sense to create this culture?
They give us carte blanche. Anything which we're doing for the customers, we were doing for them. If you take my counterpart at the Waterside Inn, Diego Maciaga, one of the best guy on the service. Actually, Diego, I got a bit of praise because I took Diego in Gavroche when he came from France straight away. I was it's not my fault if he become even better than me. Marvelous guy. But they always give us carte blanche to do what he was, and if we were the eyes, they always said, "You are our eyes in the room." We cannot be in the kitchen. We cannot be in the kitchen and doing the food and being in the room at the same time. You are our eyes in the room. And we were faithfully their eyes in the room. We were, if the customers, another trick, which I always, even now, if the customers, when we're clearing a table, if the customers got leave the plate halfway, you got a maitre-d' going clearing. If the customers would leave it 3/4, the manager would go and clear. Full stop. If it was a little bit, probably the chef de rang. If it was nothing, the commis will clear it. That's those sort of things, and we'll make sure. Why don't you eat our food? The people say, "Sorry, I was not hungry," and so on. It can happen. We wanted to know, and if the food I didn't like it. But always being those things, and we were not removing the food halfway and throw it away because the customer were not happy. We were taking the plate in front of the chef. They say, "Chef, hey, Mr. Roo, can you look? Are you happy with it?" And finish there. I'm not happy with it. Honestly, go back to the customer. Customers sometimes don't want to make any fuss.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, especially in England, if you got a continental guy who says, that's not good, we don't like it, you finish there. In England, sometimes the guy is worried to make a fuss, and then you got a letter of complaint arriving the following day. That was our thing to not to have that.
Yeah.
For me, a letter of complaint arrived is because there was something going wrong. We didn't done our job. Full stop. Whether the complaint was for the food or for the service, whatever. When a letter of complaint arrives, it is our fault. We should detect that.
And may I ask you, though, how do you deal with this? For example, like a letter in regards to not bad service, but, maybe a bit disappointing. Do you address that to your team?
Staff, of course. Of course, yeah. Because nothing better than a letter of complaint to spur your staff around. If your complacency is, as I said, is the worst thing. When your staff is, they know they're doing a good job, and they realize because they're doing a good job, they think they're superhuman. And then suddenly you got a letter of complaint arriving, is where the moment to address those situations. Complacency. Sometimes, often is complacency. Mm-hmm. And the majority of time which I receive the letter of complaint is where you're not so busy.
Yeah.
And it's very, very hard to motivate all the staff when you're not busy, because somebody think the job has been done by one, the other one think it's done by the other, and so on. Who's suffering is the customers. Mm-hmm. When you got the routine of your restaurant being full all the time, everybody is on the warpath, and you make sure you do everything. As soon as you are quietened down, I was the first one. Quietened down, I was reading a piece of paper or reading something. Yeah. And automatically my second in command doing the same thing, and so on and so on and so on. And that's where the letter of complaints or where the complaint of bad service or anything were arriving always when you were not keen and to do a good job. It was not very often, but it did happen. But it's something which you address it with all honesty with the staff, and you don't point a finger. Sometime in front of everybody, if you got, sometime I know who made a mistake. I was taking him apart before I would see all the thing. I said, look, not going to put a finger at you, but I know you made a mistake there. And wake up. And then you would not reprimand that guy in front of everybody.
Yeah, that's
is the worst.
Yeah, I agree. And so, how do you think that? Because of course there is a new generation of young waitresses, waiters, sommeliers. Do you think the way a manager is addressing to them has changed over the years, and you need to adapt to a new generation?
Of course, we need to adapt. The way I was talking to them 50 years ago, I would not dare to talk to them now. That's as simple as that. We got to adapt as well. The hours which we were doing now, we were doing 50 years ago was unheard of. And now the people got their life. We got to respect that. And actually, we got to make it their life even better if we want people coming back to do our job. For me, I've always said that we should make the people working no more than 4 nights a week. No more than that. They should, if you want them to have the equilibrium on their private life and so on, 3 to 4 nights of work or duty a week will be the most. If we working more than that, if they're working 5 or 6 nights a week, their family are suffering with it. Yeah. So we got to be very much aware of that. And if we can alleviate the hours, alleviate their time, and give them time off, and so on and so on. I was fantastic. I mean, I was working pretty hard when I arrived in London, but the rent at that time was marvelous. I was living in King's Road. I was living in the Boltons. I was sharing a room in the Boltons. That was the 70s and the 80s. Marvelous. I was walking from one place to another. Have you got any kid now living in King's Road now working for you? No. They are 4th, 5th zone and so on and so on. They're spending hours and hours to come to work. Yeah. Where I never move out from there. My first working at the old Gavroche. I bought my first apartment in Fulham Road. Okay. I could not afford it. Now, can you be, I was 30 odd, buying an apartment in Fulham Road? Never. And I sold it to buy a house in Wandsworth. That's, it is different, much different. And, we were not paying a lot. But then our money was worth more than what is the worth money now. And we were living on the best place of London.
Mm. Yeah, that's true.
And now, the poor kids sometimes, especially if they work split duty. Yeah. I was aware sometime in Gavroche, I said, my God, how can they do that? You're working starting 9 o'clock, 9 to about 3, 4 o'clock, then you got a breakage of 2 hours or an hour, and then you start again. What are you doing those 2 hours? You don't have time to go to your home and rest. What do? You go into the park. That's fine if it's a sunny day.
If it's winter.
And if it's winter, you go to the pub and you start drinking. And then you become the problem, which all our industry are the problem of alcohol. Unfortunately, we got to address that as well. There is a lot of people going into the bottles and not being very, very happy after that. So we got to address that. And, it's not easy. It's not easy on a town like London, which will become very, very difficult.
Yeah, I guess it's true. And I have a question. If you have to describe yourself, like in 3 words, as you were as a maitre-d', go for it.
Probably, I don't know, severe and efficient.
Severe and efficient, yeah. I like that. I think it's similar to you. Yes, exactly. Okay, and something that I wanted to ask, you mentioned the role, you were a sommelier for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the role of a sommelier in a restaurant? Where does he play?
Oh, I can talk a lot about that. I ate the what you would call now the sommelier, which are pushed by the directors and so on to oversell.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. I've always been on the school that say, if I got the customers who want to spend £100 on a bottle of wine, if I'm selling him at 80, it will take me 2 bottles. If I sell at 110, it will take only 1. And that's always been remind the sommelier that. Don't go over what the customer expects. Always go under.
And he may not come back. It's also tomorrow's money.
May not come back, and they may not spend there, and they may be disappointed. Especially, there are sign language which we go through with the customers. In the old time, when they open wine list, you were saying, sir, what about this one or this one? And you give him a reference of 2, a lower and the medium. And if you go in the middle, you know where to stand. And they were without mentioning the price, especially in front of the customers. I remember a very, very wealthy guy. He said, look, every time I come here in Gavroche, I can afford to buy Latour every day. But the people which I'm taking, they're not worth having Latour every day.
Yeah.
He said that, there are certain people which they love the Latour. So he said, make sure you give me the right wine with the right people I come through.
To me, yeah.
And that's full stop. And that's what it is. And if you oversell, the sommelier is sometimes the attitude. I tell you, I was in France. I won't mention about 3 before the lockdown. It was my 40th wedding anniversary, and we said we go for a little treat with my wife in Paris. And we went to one of the top 3 Michelin stars at that time. And the menu, fantastic, and so on. He said, would you like the wine by the glass? I said, well, no, it's too much. We're just having a bottle of wine and so on. And so I love the Rhone white and so on. So it was a Chateauneuf du Pape white. And the guy said, oh, but the white from Chateau Rayas is much better.
Thank you.
No, but categorically, I look at him and I said to him, are you paying the difference? Categorically. And my wife said, what? I said, well, so what? So at my age, categorically, I didn't show his face anymore to my table. They call me, send me the wine I wanted, and so on. £200 difference from the wine. And it was not cheap. The wine I took about £350, €350, sorry, about the bottles. And the other one was about €600 a bottle. Any stupid, even if I don't know anything on wine, I know that's the difference. It must be a difference of quality difference. I know it should be good. And so what? If I want to spend categorically like that, he never came back. And that's 3 Michelin stars in Paris. Huh?
Incredible.
So he never came back to our table anymore. He was
incredible.
But that's it. That's the attitude. And sometimes the patronizing of certain sommeliers, I hate that. And certain of them, they are fantastic. I'm not saying all of them, because you got people which are, how much they know, how much they don't say how much you want to spend, but they make sign and say what you want, that and that, and they're all right. They are fantastic, and they're more and more knowledgeable. I mean,
I agree. For example, like if a bartender is a confessor, what a sommelier is.
It is hard to put. Sommelier is well, you got to be careful of the sommelier who show you off too much. In front of the customers, if the customer want to talk about wine, that's fine. You got to be careful of patronizing. There are certain sommeliers who patronize the customer, start talking about this wine, about that. Fine, fair enough. Does he want to hear that?
Yeah, that's true.
That's it. So we got to be very, very careful of that. I mean, but we are on a path that's more and more good sommelier in England. We got some very nice young sommelier.
I think it's one of the strongest industry that you find.
Very, very much so. Very much so.
Like community as well.
Yeah.
Great.
So Silvano, tell us a bit more about what you're doing, your role in the industry today. I mean, you're doing consultancy work, or
I did a lot of consultancy less now. I mean, I got still working a bit for Gavroche. I still work for for Cherou, for the jockey club.
Mm-hmm.
So I was last week at Cheltenham. We're doing a Newmarket race course, and we do the Derby. And then I work for Wimbledon as well at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my work, which on the actual work which I do at the moment. The other one, I do a lot for the Gold Service Scholarship.
Yeah.
I'm a trustee of the Gold Service Scholarship, and I'm a trustee of the Royal Academy of Culinary Art. The Royal Academy of Culinary Art, the two are at my art, because I was the founder of the two. I had before an association which was called Les Arts de la Table. Les Arts de la Table was started with my maitre-d, which was before I became manager in Gavroche. Was my manager in Gavroche was Jean-Pierre Duranté, which then left for France and then come back, and he was the GM at Tante Claire, the first GM at Tante Claire with Pierre Kaufmann. And we started Les Arts de la Table at that time. And then little by little, the Roo got involved with the Royal Academy of Culinary Art. And they said, well, look, why? You got to think for Association of the Service, and we got the Association of Chefs. So why don't we get together? Because the aiming is to be together.
Yeah.
So we entered during the 80s, we amalgamate with the Royal Academy of Culinary Art, which I'm still the chairman of Les Arts de la Table. So I do a lot of competition for young people. I do a lot of competition, and then we do the MCA, the Masters. The MCA is very, very. I got to tell you something about the MCA. The MCA, when the Roo Brothers and Michel Bourdin, all the top chefs, started the MOGB, which was at that time the MCA, was called MOGB, which is Meilleur Ouvrier de Grande-Bretagne, for the chefs. And we had every 4 years they were doing, we still do it every 4 years now. They had down Bocuse and so on, which are down. And at that time, I decided to do that for the service. And that was at the beginning of the 90s. And in France, it never existed the MOF for the service until they showed it to me, and I gave them all the paper to Joël Robuchon, Bocuse, and Pierre Orsi, which was the chef of Lyon. And I give them all the paper, and they started to do the MOF for the service in France since that.
Wow.
And I'm very, very proud of that, because the first 6 people they took in 1993 in France, 3 were my ex-boy of Gavroche. So I said, yeah, that was my best thing which I ever done. And it's by trying to test yourself. It's like the sommelier. There is the Tétanger prize, the Tétanger now, which was the Ruinart before, and so on, which I was at the beginning one of the judges, because then little by little they done it within themselves. But I'm very proud of that. And all those competition, they are stimulating our industry.
Yeah, it's true.
Very much. And they, not only that, but all those young people which are put together, and they meeting other people, and it's the only time during those competitions that they meet together, because they are in different places of London. The only time they amalgamate, and where you're working, and so on, and they become friends.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a community.
It's a community, very much so.
And something that I wanted to ask, though, is I guess at some point, like perhaps more in the past now, there used to be a lot of carving at the tables. So it's something that you still expect from waiters to do.
Yes, the master, we do ask still, we do insist about those skills. Actually, the semi-finals of the master, they are in front of, we give them about 10 different tasks to do. Carving a smoked salmon, carving a duck, carving a chicken, carving what else, filleting, a doversole, and so on. There are 10 different tasks, decanting and so on, because we want them to prepare to being on everything. Identification of cheese and so on and so on. So, but the carving and so on, they are pity, because they are marvelous young. But once they arrive in front of the carving, they are fluttering, because they don't do that anymore.
But somewhere where you can learn those skills.
It is very hard. The majority of restaurants now, yes, you still got 1 or 2 things which are still done in front of the game in season and so on, which are still done. But there is less and less people doing. The unfortunate thing, there is less and less people teaching them.
Is it a fashion thing as well, or is it?
Yes and no. I think it's our fault, which we have lost the skill to do it. So the chefs are not confident to send it to be destroyed by the front of the house. And that's what we got to think. We got to think about. If they got somebody which is confident and do a good job, they are more than happy to send a bird in front of the customer, and you do it. Now they got the kind of those people which never saw
birds.
They only see fillets and legs on one side, and that's it. And they never saw a bird to them. And that's
you do see a lot in France still.
Less and less, less and less than what it was before. And the people who destroy our job was with the event of Nouvelle Cuisine. Mm-hmm. The Nouvelle Cuisine during the 80s, the chef decided to plate everything and done a beautiful. Before, when we started, everything was coming up on a dish, and we were putting from the dish to a plate. From the Nouvelle Cuisine started everything to be plated. So little by little, that on the top, especially on the top restaurant, it went out of order. So there is very, very little, even in France, there's still very, very little to do. I mean, they still probably do a steak tartare to mix and so on, because there's nothing to mess about, even if you mix it badly, that's it. But, they little by little, they have cut off all the things, which we would love if they come back. I would love, and that's it. But you probably got very few restaurants, possibly the Ritz, which still do a beautiful service and so on the Guéridon and so on. But no wonder the boys of the Ritz, they are MCA, the master, they're fantastic. And but there's no other. I don't see any other. Otto, have you ever been to Otto?
Yes.
Otto is one of the disappearing.
We had the pressed duck,
the pressed duck and the pressed lobster and so on. That's probably the only one which I can still do those sort of things, and that's it. And I love to go and see Otto. Don't go very often, but every 3 or 4 years I go and see. But he still do the fantastic, amazing, and it's marvelous. It's theater. Yeah. That's what we're missing, theater. I wish those times will come back.
Nice.
But this is what my next question would have been like. Do you see that in the future coming back?
You would need to have a chef front of the house orientated and to be able to support that. If you're doing those things in front of the people, you need to have a lot of staff. It takes time, and with the amount of staff there is at the moment, it's very, very hard. So you would need, if you got I would love to see a restaurant where you can do all those sort of things, the crêpe Suzette, all those sort of things which we were doing. But then even the crêpe Suzette and the steak au poivre and things like that, it was tailor-made. We had a lot of cowboy working for us, I must say, the front of the house. And, they were lighting up the crêpe Suzette. Bigger was the flame, better it was. And they were killing the produce. Because you don't need a lot of, of course, if you put a ton of alcohol, the flame will go high, but you destroy the dish. So that's what we were calling them the cowboys of our industry. They destroyed it. And that's why the chefs say, it's very nice to put a flambé and so on into the room, but what you're eating, was it tasted? And, that's to find the right balance will be very good. I would love to see those crafts coming back.
Yeah. How do you see service in the future? Like in the next 20 years, where do you see it?
Well, I think we got to look at the positive side and say that he remained the same or even better. I'd love to help those young people to be a professional, but we got to help them. We got to give them value to what they do. If we keep them saying service is not good and only the chef is good, there would be nobody left into that. I think we need to encourage the young people to take on a marvelous profession. If I tell you all the things I've done in my life with my profession and so on, and where the Roo Brothers take me and so on, I would have another week to talk about. I've done I got immense pleasure from my job. And if we only could infuse a bit of that flavor to those young people, the service could go down. But it's up to us to trust them first and to encourage them. To be the David and the future people encouraging your young people to do that. And I think we got a good future, but he got to be seen on the right space. We got to say what we got to say to the parents. That's a good profession to send your people.
Awesome.
And we got to respect the hours, and they got to be properly paid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good wrap up.
Agreed. And just non-negotiables.
Yes. So Silvano, we're running out of time. We've been speaking too much. 3 of yours non-negotiables, please, during service or in general.
So we're working for you now on the floor. And what can't we do?
To the sommelier first, don't over push the wine.
Okay, I get that. I take it.
To the waiter, look whether you put your eyes. Don't put your eyes on the ceiling. It's been clean and the floor has been clean already. Look at the plate. And, don't turn the back to the customers.
Very good.
Nice.
And last 6 fire questions for you. So basically, I just would like you please to reply with just one answer, just short sentence. Yeah. What is your favorite book?
Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code.
Nice.
What is your lazy dinner look like?
Oh, a tin of caviar and a bottle of champagne.
I had pizza and cheese now. Now, who do you admire most in the industry?
My God, there's a lot of top chefs. They are created apart from the brothers, which are no more there. The cousin now, the fantastic. I admire them both, and the people like Bruce and so on, which are fantastic in our industry. Bruce has been there forever and ever, and he's my neighbor. And it's like those unpretentious places which make worthwhile to go, and that's what I like about those small little corner of the restaurant in London, which is fantastic.
Amazing. And what is the person that you admire the most outside of the hospitality industry?
My God, outside the hospitality, very, very hard to say. Who I admire the most? Possibly the royal family.
The royal family?
Yeah.
And where did you receive your best service?
Where do I receive the best service? Bernard Loiseau in Burgundy.
Burgundy.
Yeah.
And I know that you like Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
Yes.
However, if you do have a desert island wine, what would that be? It can be Rayas Blanc.
It can be Rayas Blanc. No, I think I would go with a bottle of Comte de Champagne.
There we go. Amazing. I agree with that. Great. So I think that's a good wrap up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Silvano. That was such a pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for listening to us. And we'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to Drive for Service podcast. Follow us on Instagram @medlarchelsea and make sure you like and subscribe for future episodes.